In this episode of the JSP Show, we're talking histograms. Hey guys, what's up? It's Johnny here, and welcome to another episode of the JSP Show. And as always, I'm super pumped to be here. And this week on the show, we're talking all about histograms, how to read them, how to balance them, and how to fix an under and overexposed image. And I've also got a ninja tip for you Lightroom users that's going to really show you what sliders affect what areas of the histogram. All right, let's get into it. This is going to be a quick one, guys, so let's smash through it. I like to make them nice and quick and short, just so you can only learn what you need to learn and we'll get out. All right, let's do it. Let's do it. Okay, so the first image. Check out the histogram at the top here, guys. Can you see that? It's a nice little pyramid. There is room to add a bit of contrast either end of this histogram. You know, we're not taking advantage of this whole histogram here, but you can see it's not underexposed, which is the left side of the histogram, and it's not overexposed, which is the right side of the histogram. So that's a pretty, this is all straight out of the camera too, guys, so I haven't done anything with this one. Now, I have pushed these ones to the left and to the right of the histogram, and I'll show you what I mean. So I've just used the exposure slider here to give this an example of an overexposed image. So this, you can see it's definitely overexposed. Histogram is pushed up to the right there. You know, we've got none or very few detail in the midtones and in the blacks down, the shadows and the blacks down this end. So that would be an example of an overexposed histogram. All right, and the last one, of course, we're going to do underexposed. You can see there's nothing up here in the whites or the highlights and this end of the midtones here. There's absolutely no detail at all. So this would be an underexposed image. And when you're shooting in camera, keep an eye on histogram. Bring your histogram up after you shoot, and that'll give you a good example of where your exposure's at in camera. Okay. All right, so how would I go about fixing this image here? If this was the image I had in my camera and I really wanted to use it, and I've been shooting in RAW, which is totally critical, guys. You need to be shooting in RAW because it's going to allow you to pull back those details, okay? So if I was to bring this exposure slider down, that's one way I could fix this, you know, just exposure slider. But what's that going to do? It's going to give a global adjustment right across the image, okay? It's affecting everything, you know, highlights, shadows, midtones, blacks and whites. It's affecting everything. So the other thing I could do if this was slightly overexposed, okay, in this area here is the highlight slider can fix that, okay? So if I was to pull the highlight slider down, you can see it's pulling back those brighter areas. I can also use the white slider. It's going to pull it back a bit as well, and that's going to affect the whites and it's going to affect the whites and the highlights. So that's one way to fix this image as well. Okay, so if your image was pushed up into this section, you know, you may find that it's pretty well balanced along here, but there just happens to be one spike over here. Then the highlights is going to fix that for you. Okay, so that's how I would go about fixing this image. Pretty simple one, really. If it's in this zone here, then that's the highlights. If it's in this zone here, you know, the whites can help you pull that little bit of a section back. But when the whole light is pushed up like this, you know, the exposure slider is going to help balance that out. Okay, so that's basically how I'd fix something in the highlights. You just got to watch these zones, and you can see it's broken up into like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 zones. Okay, and I'll show you a ninja tip in a minute and an easy way to remember what zone relates to what. Okay, so I'll go over here to the underexposed image, and the best thing for this one would be, yeah, of course, just correct it with the exposure. It's going to fix everything. The histogram is now looking pretty balanced. It's looking pretty nice there. But what would happen if you were like this and you had nice detail up in this area and over this area, but you wanted to pull some more detail out of here and out of the blacks, okay? So what you would do is you could open up the shadow slider. So you can see what it's doing there. Just all the shadows are being opened up, and I can push the blacks back, and there you go. Okay, so there you go. It's sort of balanced the histogram, but it's only affecting the shadows and the blacks, okay? All right, so here's the ninja tip. Let's go back to this one that's well balanced, okay? Here's the ninja tip for you guys, okay? So Lightroom has 5 zones, and I talked about these before. And actually, if you highlight over each zone, it's really nice. It actually highlights the slider. So I'm affecting the white area of the histogram there. This section here is the highlights. This middle section here is exposure. This the first left section here is shadows, and this last section here is black. So what's really cool, say your histogram looked like this and you wanted to push it the other way, you could just click on this area and drag to the left to balance up the histogram. Look at that, and that's just affecting the exposure slider there. So it's a really great way of adjusting and balancing your histogram, if you're unsure of what slider affects what, okay? So say I wanted to just open up the shadows there a little bit, so I can click and drag in this slider, and it's just going to open up those shadows there, okay? Say I wanted to add some more black in, because I really want a black point here, so I could pull the blacks down just a touch there. So, oh, sorry, I was affecting the shadows there. I wasn't clicking over far enough. But say I wanted to add some more blacks, I could just pull this black point down here. And say I wanted to add more highlights and whites, I could just pull this section here. So just make sure you click it and drag in the right section. And there you go, there's some whites I could add back in. So there you go, guys. It's really simple, really easy. I love this technique. It's in fact, often I'll just use that technique to balance my histogram when I first get my image in. After I do usually white balance, and I balance my histogram. That's just how I work down the sliders. But yeah, it's a great tip, and I hope you enjoyed it, guys. So that's it for this week, and that's a bit of histogram love. And yeah, have a great week. Take it easy. Peace.